All right. Mentioned in the last video, I wanted to address affordability issues, which is a critical issue right now. And I think something that we can all agree on. I think the vast majority of us individuals can agree that prices are too high. Housing prices are unaffordable, especially for young people trying to get a house. Food prices are too high. Medical care is too expensive. When you have a situation that average people working average jobs can't afford groceries and can't afford to ever buy a house, that's a problem that needs to be addressed. Each subsequent administration says that they're going to do something about it, but somehow they never do. And yet corporations keep making more and more money. That in itself is not a bad thing, but affordability needs to be addressed. Um, so different people can have different ideas on how they would address this. This is my plan for how I would do it. And I have 5 points to this plan that I'll walk through now. Number one, part of the reason, there's multiple reasons that food is so expensive and keeps increasing in price. Part of it is the tariffs on food. If you put tariffs on food and food inputs, it's inevitably going to be paid by the consumer ultimately. If you tariff food coming into the country, it's going to restrict the supply or increase the prices of the food. And I'll also say food inputs like fertilizer, seed, feed for cattle. If you tariff all those things, ultimately it's going to make the end products more expensive. Tariffing food is a horrible idea. People need to buy food to live. No more tariffs on food. Point two, another reason that food keeps getting more expensive is those people who work on farms and ranches who are here illegally have been shipped out. And now, in some cases, there aren't people to process that food. So, immigration is a much bigger issue. But just on the issue of affordability, if somebody wants to come and work here and work on a farm or a ranch or in food processing, we need those people right now to bring down food prices and make food more affordable. So there needs to be a pathway in the immigration scheme to encourage that. And if they want to do that work, vet those people, give them a path to get a visa so we know who they are and allow them to come in and work those jobs because we need people who can do that work currently. Point three, housing. So there are some sub points here on why housing has gotten so expensive and what to do about that. I have three things. First of all, similar to the food, if you tariff housing inputs, construction materials, lumber, ultimately it's going to make any new construction more expensive or discourage companies from doing construction because the inputs are more expensive, or they need to raise the price of the house that they sell. Something is going to be more expensive if you tariff the inputs. No more tariffs on housing construction inputs. Point two, part of the reason housing is so expensive is demand keeps going up because there's more people, but some locations are not building because of local ordinances, local zoning, local building regulations, things like that. The federal government needs to work with them to encourage more housing production, increase supply that will reduce prices. Point three is a critical one. Part of the reason housing has gotten so expensive is because corporations are buying the housing. No more corporate ownership of houses. That doesn't make any sense. There's no reason to allow that. And that ties back to the previous video of corporate control, corporate influence. No more corporate ownership of single family houses. And alongside that, it doesn't make sense to allow foreign investment, either foreign individuals investing in US houses or apartments, or foreign companies investing in US houses or US apartments. That doesn't make any sense. And you could easily stop and say, just if you're not going to live or be local to that, to what you're investing in, you can't buy it. No more corporate investment, no more foreign investment in U.S. housing. Number 4 is protect and encourage local farmers and ranchers, and there's multiple subpoints under this. You'd want to incentivize small farmers and ranchers to produce versus large corporate farmers and ranchers. Encourage that local small farmer and small rancher. There's multiple ways to do that. And again, this is some subpoints under here. First point is, farmers and ranchers report that their inputs, they usually only have one corporate choice of inputs like seed, as well as outputs. They'll have one corporate output on food distribution, like where they can sell their produce or meat. They'll often have only one or two inputs and outputs, meaning there's virtually monopoly control on their input prices and monopoly control on their output prices. And then they get squeezed on both sides. That's what's made a lot of these unsustainable. They can't make enough money to operate. They go to the government and ask for subsidies, and then those subsidies end up going to the companies that are forcing prices that are not sustainable. So again, this goes back to the previous video of break up those large companies and into multiple companies to give more choices of inputs like feed and seed, fertilizer, and output distribution of where they can sell their products for price competition and get prices down that way. Also, things like processing of food. So if you delve into this, beef processing, there's only a handful of beef processing companies across the country. I think there's a few companies that own 85% of the whole market, I believe, in beef processing. There's 10 companies that do all the chicken processing across the country. Same with pork, things like that. And part of how it's come under corporate control, no surprise, is it's gone through Congress, has been lobbied to get the FDA and the USDA to control how processing is done, and that it has to be done on a large level. You actually can't get meat processed on the local small level. Even if you had a small rancher who was trying to process within the state, currently that's not allowed. So we would, through the USDA, say encourage small local processing of chicken, beef, pork. That can be done in local processing plants. It doesn't have to be done in the few corporate locations around the country, which only drives prices up. And then also on food labeling, currently a lot of meat can't be labeled on origin, like from the US, and you don't know where your meat is coming from. Again, this is another thing where corporate influence said, let's not label where it comes from. So you don't know if you're getting it from the US. You'd like to know if you were able to label this meat came from the US, then it would encourage people to buy the local meat, the meat within their state. And encourage local production and local processing, local farmers. That's what we want, and that would help bring prices down. I think these efforts would bring prices down. And then number five is kind of redundant because it goes back to the very first video. The number one thing is to reduce the debt. It's the deficit spending that's driving inflation across housing, food, and everything else. It's the deficit spending and the debt that's driving inflation. And I told you in that initial video, if the debt isn't addressed, that they're going to make you pay it. This is part of how they'll make you pay it. You're going to pay it through increased food prices, food inflation, housing price inflation, large interest rates on mortgages that'll go to the bank. The price to go get a car will be higher, but also the interest rate on that loan will be higher, which will go to the bank. Increased prices are going to drive up everything as a result of the debt. So 0.5 redundant is reduce that debt back down to zero. That will reduce inflation. So the nice thing here is virtually all this can be done through the executive branch, breaking up monopolies and large company control through the FTC, policies through HUD, Housing and Urban Development, USDA, FDA, A lot of this can be done just at the executive level, first year. So to summarize, number one, eliminate tariffs on food. That's the president, obviously, because that's how we got here. First year, eliminate those tariffs. Number two, immigration policy, president, first year, create pathways for food workers to stay and get vetted and have visas. Three, the housing input tariffs eliminated first year, president control. Restricting corporate and foreign ownership of housing in the U.S. can be done via the executive branch first year. Those ideas around protecting farmers that go through FDA, USDA policies and breaking up those input and output companies through the FTC, that's executive branch policy, can be done by the executive branch and the president in the first year. And then the fifth one, the difficult one of bringing down that debt so that long-term inflation doesn't get out of control. Again, going back to the first video, that's a bigger issue that needs to go through Congress, but proposing that budget in the first year for the debt tax and bringing down spending. So that's it for this one. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.